In this world, people wake up again after death to eat human flesh. Hello all. This is Jacobson and this is a short retelling of the 4th and 5th episodes of the 8th season of the zombie series The Walking Dead. You can see the previous episodes at the links in the video description. As soon as this video gets 300 likes, I will release the next part. Enjoy watching it.
In the flashback, Gabriel prays in a church in Alexandria. He tells God that he is afraid of a fruitless death and asks for a goal. In another flashback, before Rick's attack on the shelter, Simon finds Gregory sleeping at breakfast and summons him to the Saviors meeting room. Gregory meets with Negan and his lieutenants and offers to help the Saviors by expelling any Hilltop resident who joins Rick's alliance. Negan doubts Gregory's true loyalty and doubts that he has any influence over the residents of Hilltop. Simon supports Gregory's plan, offering to support his return to the Hilltop and kill everyone who does not join. Negan stops him, explaining that people are a resource, they must remain tactful and focus on killing the right people. Negan plans to capture Rick, Maggie and Ezekiel and kill them publicly and bloodily. The meeting is interrupted by the sudden sound of gunshots. Negan looks out the dirty window and sees Rick's army. He goes out to greet the guests, and his lieutenants follow him. Back in the present, Negan and Gabriel hide in the trailer after the attack on the shelter. The walkers are tirelessly pounding on the walls, trying to get inside. Negan asks Gabriel why he helped Gregory. After some reflection, Gabriel comes to the conclusion that they were destined to be in the trailer together. "I think I'm here to accept your confession," he says. On the road, Rick and Daryl question a dying Jag after his truck left the highway. Yaga informs them that all the saviors and fighters of the kingdom at the chemical plant have been killed, except for Ezekiel, Jerry and Carol. He gets injured and dies. In the trailer, Negan expresses concern that his people think he is dead, and explains that many people will die in the walls of the shelter if he is not around to maintain order. Meanwhile, Negan's lieutenants gather in the conference room to develop a plan of action. Regina suggests sending a group of workers to distract the walkers, which will allow them to send a team of rescuers to warn the outposts. Eugene predicts that this will cause an uprising of already alarmed workers. Dwight agrees. Gavin notes that this happened for a reason. Someone in the shelter had to help Rick's group coordinate the attack. Eugene knocks on Dwight's apartment door and thanks him for taking his side at the meeting. Inspecting the surroundings, he takes a freshly painted figure from Dwight's chessboard and stains his fingers with red paint. Back in the trailer, Negan shares with Gabriel some of his philosophical views. He explains that everyone has weaknesses and that there were many weak people in the shelter before he came to power. Their previous leader allowed people to be weak, and Negan made them strong. Trying to get Negan to open up, Gabriel asks him if he had a wife before the fall, and this question seems to touch him to the quick. Taking advantage of the fact that Negan is upset, Gabriel snatches the gun from him. Negan fights back, and Gabriel runs into the next room, slamming the door behind him. A walker breaks through the trailer wall. Negan smashes Lucille's head on him and tells Gabriel it's time to leave. Back on the road, Rick and Daryl find explosives in Iago's overturned truck. Daryl develops a plan to force the saviors to surrender. He suggests using explosives to blow up one of the walls of the shelter, which will allow walkers to break inside and absorb this place. Rick rejects the idea, fearing it would endanger innocent workers and their families. Daryl leaves with dynamite, intending to carry out the plan on his own. Rick knocks him to the ground. In the shelter, Eugene is playing video games in his room, and then the electricity goes out. While Rick and Daryl are fighting, Rick throws a bag of dynamite towards Iago's truck. Dynamite explodes, and two men look at the burning wreckage. Rick unsuccessfully tries to start his Jeep. Daryl drives up on his motorcycle and negotiates with Rick. Rick says he will meet with Daryl after he completes the last step of their plan. Negan drags the dead walker into the trailer and urges Gabriel to run with him, saying that their chances of getting to the shelter are much higher if they work together. Gabriel agrees to accompany Negan if he confesses. Gabriel talks about his biggest sin: he locked his parishioners in a church in the early days of the apocalypse, leaving them to die. Negan finally tells Gabriel that before the fall, he cheated on his wife while she was ill. He says his weakness was that he couldn't put her down when she died after a fall. Negan cuts up the walker, and they are smeared with guts. Then Negan opens the door to the trailer, and the walkers stumble inside, ignoring them. Negan and Gabriel walk across the yard, not noticing the herd. Gabriel stumbles and attracts the attention of walkers. They fight the walkers together, making their way to the shelter. Negan's lieutenants gather in the conference room. Gavin deduces that the survivors must have overthrown the Savior's outposts because none of the transport trucks appeared on the roads. Laura warns them of an approaching group of workers. The lieutenants discover a crowd of workers standing in the corridor. Simon orders them to return to the factory floor. The workers say it's too hot in the factory and complain that they don't have enough food and water. One of the workers asks if Negan is dead, and the crowd becomes increasingly noisy when Simon evades the answer. Regina shoots a worker who pulled out a gun and proclaims, "I am a Negan," trying to restore order. There is silence when Negan enters the hallway with Gabriel at the ready. Negan assures everyone that he is not ready to die, and says that the Saviors will do what they always do. Negan orders his men to take Gabriel to the cell. Negan meets with his lieutenants. Laura and Rad bring a bag of weapons they found at Rick's army and report that the weapons were from the Savior's armory. Eugene notices the red paint on the bag and associates it with Dwight's red chess pieces. As Rick walks down the road, he sees a helicopter in the sky. He continues on his way, his confusion growing. At the shelter, Negan takes Eugene aside and offers to reward him if he can find a solution to the problem of the herd surrounding the shelter, or kill him if he can't. At the dump, a guard notices Rick approaching and whistles to other scavengers. Eugene goes to Gabriel's cell and welcomes him to the shelter. He opens the door and sees Gabriel curled up in a ball and sweating profusely. Gabriel mutters that they have to get Dr. Carson out of the shelter. He is Maggie's doctor, and she will need his help. Eugene looks at Gabriel, unhappy with the way the situation is unfolding. On a deserted road, Rick finds 2 letters hidden in a small pile of garbage. Meanwhile, in the kingdom, messengers deliver 2 letters to Carol with reports from the fighters of Alexandria and Hilltop. In Alexandria, Tara and the Alexandrian fighters return home. She passes 2 letters to Michonne and Carl with reports of the battles at the outposts of the kingdom and Hilltop. And at the Hilltop, Aaron returns with baby Gracie and passes 2 letters to Maggie. Recipients read letters reporting battles at outposts and the state of other communities. In her messages, Maggie tells how Jesus brought the Saviors back to Hilltop as prisoners. Carol's note from the kingdom tells that during the attack on the Saviors' outpost, everyone died except herself and Ezekiel and Jerry. In his letter, Rick says that their plan is working. The walkers have surrounded the shelter, and their snipers are on guard so that no one escapes. Meanwhile, conditions for those inside are deteriorating. He explains that he is going to carry out the next stage of the plan and meet with everyone at the shelter in 2 days to put an end to this. At the landfill, Jedi's is building a wire sculpture, but she is interrupted by 3 loud knocks at the entrance to the storage container. Unaware, she signals 2 guards to open the door. Jesus distributes food to the prisoners, Saviors chained up. Maggie reprimands him for wasting food on the Saviors, but Jesus defends his decision to feed the prisoners of war. Gregory suggests they start building gallows for execution. In the kingdom, Carol knocks on the door of the hall, calling or helping her to gather fighters so they can meet with Rick, but receives no response. On the way, Henry chases her and offers to help her fight the Saviors, but she angrily pushes him away. Rick shows Jedi some photos of the dead Saviors after the battles at the 3 outposts as proof of their imminent defeat. He asks Jedi's to join his alliance again. Jedi's rejects his offer while the scavengers take his weapons and lead him deep into the dump. In the Hilltop, Gregory advises Maggie to ignore Jesus and recommends that she follow her intuition about prisoners of war. He warns that wolves should not be allowed to roam among sheep. In Alexandria, Michonne is recovering from combat wounds received during the attack of Negan on Alexandria. Unable to wait any longer, Michonne decides to see the besieged shelter with her own eyes. After an unsuccessful attempt to convince Michonne to stay, Rosita goes with her. Meanwhile, Tara is surprised to find Daryl waiting for her on the porch. When she vows to kill Dwight after the war ends, Daryl suggests they kill him together and suggests not to wait. Jesus guards the prisoners of war during the night and hears the sounds of construction coming from the walls of the hilltop. Ignoring the mysterious sounds, Alden tells Jesus that he joined the Saviors only for the safety that Negan provides. During the trip, Michonne and Rosita hear a woman singing opera music in the distance. They get out of the car and follow the sound until they reach an empty building. Carl returns to the forest in search of the man he met at the gas station. He finds a mysterious stranger and gives him food and water. After introducing himself, he learns that the man's name is Siddiq. Carl tells Siddiq about his community and asks him 3 of Rick's selection questions. Siddiq explains that he killed 237 walkers in honor of his mother, because she believed that by killing them, she freed their souls. Carl invites him to Alexandria. In the woods, Carol finds Henry fighting 2 walkers with his stick, but without much success. She shoots at walkers and reprimands the boy for putting his life in danger. Henry, still eager to avenge Benjamin's death, insists on fighting the Saviors. After some thought, Carol agrees and gives him a gun. At the top of the hill, Annette instructs Jesus to lead the Saviors inside the wall. Inside, Jesus sees a newly built cell. When the rescuers enter the makeshift pen, Maggie declares that they will not mistreat the prisoners. At the end of the sentence, Maggie declares that she agrees with Gregory's instruction about wolves among sheep. Then she sends Gregory to the paddock to the Saviors, despite his loud protests. Jared tries to grab the gun from the guard, but Maggie hits him with the butt of her rifle, knocking him down. On the way to Alexandria, Carl and Siddiq stumble upon a small group of walkers feeding on dead moose. Carl suggests they kill the walkers to honor the memory of Siddiq's mom. After a little struggle, they kill all the walkers and continue on their way to Alexandria. Michonne and Rosita sneak into the building and eavesdrop on the conversation of the 2 Saviors. Ilya, plotting to use the fat woman, a truck equipped with dozens of loudspeakers playing loud music to distract the herd from the shelter. Michonne accidentally kicks an object that warns the Saviors of their presence. Rosita kills Lou with a rocket launcher found in the building, but Z escapes in the fat woman. While the truck is picking up speed and singing an opera, suddenly a garbage truck crashes into the side of the rescuer's truck, destroying it. Daryl and Tara get out of the garbage truck and shoot the driver. Michonne explains to Daryl and Tara that the Savior's plan has failed. Daryl declares that they still have a lot of work to do. Carol enters the audience of the kingdom and calls on Ezekiel to return to the role of the king, indicating that his people need him. And insists that after his failure, he can no longer play the role of their king, and asks Carol to leave him alone. In the POW pen at Hilltop, Jared is quietly trying to free his bound hands by slowly cutting the rope with a rock. Alden, worried that Jared will kill them, knocks the stone out of his hand. Jared grins, predicting that they will be able to take over the hilltop. Gregory watches this in silence. In the library, Aaron shares his feelings of loss with Maggie, who understands his pain firsthand. Jesus stays with the news and reports that Gregory is in the process of sucking up to the Saviors. Jesus thanks Maggie for saving the prisoners of war, but Maggie dissuades him, saying that the captives will be good hostages for trading in the future, and warns Jesus that they cannot leave any unsold Savior alive. Annette sees Aaron getting into the car and asks where he's going. "To make sure we win," he replies. She agrees with his opinion and joins him. Daryl's group parks close enough to the shelter that Michonne can watch the siege through the scope. Daryl declares that they will end this now. At the landfill, Jedi's writes a letter on the door of the storage container. Inside, Rick sits in the dark, naked, alone, but calm.